Right now, though, we will talk more about the North Shropshire by-election, where the Liberal Democrats scored a victory, taking one of the country's safest Conservative seats. Helen Morgan overturned a Tory majority of nearly 23,000, declaring that the party is now over for the Prime Minister. She won by nearly 6,000 votes in what was the 7th biggest by-election swing since the war. Speaking at a vaccination centre this morning, the Prime Minister gave his reaction to his party's defeat.
Clearly, the vote in North Shropshire is a very disappointing result, and I totally understand people's frustrations. I hear what the voters are saying in North Shropshire, and in all humility, I've got to accept that verdict. Yes, Sam, and what I would say is, of course, I understand that what voters want us as the government to be doing at all times is to focus on them and on their priorities. And my job as Prime Minister is to get the focus onto the stuff that really matters to all of us. So not just the vaccine rollout, getting boosted now, but what we're doing to fight crime, to sort out our borders with the Borders Bill, the Human Rights Act, and what we're doing to keep the economy going. We've got the fastest growing economy in Europe, more jobs now than there were before the pandemic began. What we're doing to train up our country and prepare our economy for what I hope will be a great recovery. But I totally understand why people were frustrated and are frustrated in North Shropshire.
I think viewers would have just heard you not accept personal responsibility and instead deflect with a list of other things your government is doing. So can I try...
I don't think that's perfectly...
So you accept you are to blame?
Look, I'm responsible for everything that the government does, and of course I take personal responsibility.
So what things that went wrong under your watch, that are your responsibility, are partly to blame? For instance, do you think the absolutely cavalier approach to lockdown rules by you and your staff in Downing Street played a part in last night's defeat?
I think that people are frustrated, and I understand that basically what's been going wrong, Sam, is that in the last few weeks, some things have been going very well, but what the people have been hearing, is just a constant litany of stuff about politics and politicians and stuff that isn't about them and isn't about the things that we can do to make life better. And so, to that extent, of course, you're right. And I think that the job of the government is to make people like you, Sam, interested in the booster rollout and in skills and in housing and in everything else that we're doing. And unfortunately, you're totally right, we haven't been able to get the focus on those issues.
So, Prime Minister, it sounds to me like you're quite clearly blaming the public for being focused on the wrong thing and the media for reporting the wrong thing. So can I try again and ask a number of things, whether or not you think the following are responsible?
I think that's very unfair.
This is what Tory MPs are saying to us. So forgive me, this is what your colleagues believe. Do you believe that you trying to change the sleaze rules in favour of you and your colleagues, which triggered the by-election, which caused this defeat, do you accept hands up responsibility for that?
Yeah, I do, because I think it goes back to exactly what I was just saying, Sam, which I think it comes into the overall category of politicians talking about ourselves and those issues and seeming to be focused on those issues at the expense of the things that really matter to people. And so I think my job is to get over what we're doing more effectively and to show people that as a result of the fastest vaccine rollout and the fastest booster rollout in Europe, that we've got more jobs than before the pandemic began. And I've got to put my hands up and say, have I failed to get that message across in the last few weeks? Has it been obscured by all this other stuff? Yes, I'm afraid it has.
So what needs to change, given it was your advisers laughing on video about breaking COVID rules? You got a Tory donor to pay for the refurbishment of your flat. How do you stop those things happening again? That's the question Tories are asking
yes,
today.
Yes, I know, but can I just with all humility and respect to you, Sam, those questions are exactly the kind of questions about politics and politicians and all those kinds of things you run, the running of government that I'm going to have to fix, of course. But the real issue that I think people want to focus on is what we're doing to sort out the NHS, the investment that we're putting in to get us through a very tough time, and what we're doing to tackle the pandemic. And that is the number one priority for the government. Because if I may say, respectfully, Omicron is if I can move on to that for a second, Omicron is a very serious threat to us now. We are seeing a considerable wave coming through. And people have got to be prepared, and they've got to understand what it entails. And that's why the best thing everybody can do is not just follow the guidance, the advice that we've set out, but get boosted now. That is the crucial thing that we need to do. We've now, as of yesterday, vaccinated 25 million people with a booster, which is a great number, but we need to do a lot more. And we've got everybody's coming forward to help. You've got the army here giving a massive assistance. You've got volunteers. The teams are expanding the whole time. We have the capacity to deliver the Get Boosted Now campaign. What we need is for people to realise the urgency and come forward themselves.
But, Prime Minister, Tory MPs say the dysfunction of your administration is having real-world consequences about exactly what you're talking about. For instance, your cabinet ministers are contradicting your scientific advisors over the rules and over the guidance. Should people be cancelling social events in the run-up to Christmas? Yes or no?
Well, I've said already that people should be cautious, but what we've also said is that people should decide what they want to do. It's a matter for their personal choice. We're not closing things down, but we do think people need to be cautious.
But your chief medical advisor goes further and urges people to prioritise just what they absolutely need to do. Is he right?
Yeah, look, I think what both Chris Whitty and I are saying is that there is a big wave of Omicron coming through. People need to be prudent. They need to think about, you need to think about your budget of risk, as it were, Sam. But what we're not saying, we're not in the position that we were in last year of closing everything down and trying to mandate exactly what people do. We want to leave much more to people's responsibility and choice, but we want them to be aware of the facts. And the facts are that Omicron, it does represent a very considerable risk, and people need to be aware of that risk. They need to take the steps, and above all, they need to get boosted now.
Final question. Tory MPs are saying publicly that conversations have begun about your future, whether you should stay in that job. If it was in the interests of the country, if it was in the interests of the Conservative Party, would you resign?
Sam, can I just remind you everything I've been saying throughout this interview, which is that is exactly the kind of question that qualifies, that breaks the golden rule. What we're focusing on is getting the job done. What we're focusing on is trying to make sure that we not only have the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, the fastest booster rollout, as we've already done, but that we're able, because of the Get Boosted Now campaign, to avert some of the more damaging consequences of Omicron. That is what the government is engaged in doing now. That is what I am focused on. And do you know what? I think that is what people would want me to be focused on right now. Thank you.
The Prime Minister reacting to the Liberal Democrat win in the by-election. The Lib Dems taking a seat that has been Conservative for nearly 200 years.